Hey, my name is Roman, and did you know that the Dow Jones is right now at $19,000? Yes, you heard me correct, $19,000. That is a lot of money, and with a low of 1550 in the last month or so, it's been kind of surprising to see how the stock market has been going up recently with all the tariffs and action that's been happening. But recently, tariff trade wars with Trump, China, Canada, and Mexico have been dying down ever so slightly, and it's gone from more of a trade war into more of a deal, the art of the deal, you could say. And we'll dive into that a little bit today with why the stock market has been going up, especially this week specifically. This video is a few days late, but hey, once again, my name is Roman, aka YoungBizWhiz. And let's talk a little bit more about why the stock market has decided to finally start going up again. Well, first things first, if you don't know, usually when Trump has been getting elected, he usually starts off the year or the election very strong. I remember about 4 years ago when he became, actually, wouldn't it be 8 years now? Yeah, it's been 8 years since he was last president. And when he became president 8 years ago in his first term, I remember the stock market going up over like 50, 60, 70% for like the first 2 years before COVID. And I mean, it's kind of been a general presence now with the stock market going up again when Trump became elected. And so that means when Trump becomes president or becomes elected, usually people have more trust in the economy and feel like it's gonna possibly go in the right path, at least the people that are investing money in the stocks, and that makes the stock market go up. However, with the tariffs recently and the trade wars that have been happening and all the stuff that's been said and done,
I think you're going to remember today, it's going to be a free nation that we're dealing with. We're going to have a very free and beautiful nation. It's going to be Liberation Day in America. That's a 10. That's a good one. Yeah.
Treasury Secretary Dustin suggested that with the tariff rates as high as they are now, it's effectively an embargo of trade between the United States and China. Do you see it that way?
That's true. 145% is very high, and it won't be that high. It's not going to be that high. It got up to that. We were talking about fentanyl, where, you know, various elements built it up to 145. No, it won't be anywhere near that high.
What level do you think it'll come down to if you haven't?
It'll come down substantially, but it won't be zero.
25% tariffs, 15% tariffs nationally, 145% tariffs from China. It's been kind of surprising that America has been, how do I say this? But it's not been surprising. I mean, how do I say this nicely? It hasn't been surprising that people are suffering on the short term, especially on the stock market and with the product and development from these other countries, manufacturing, importing, and exporting. And so with all these things that have been happening recently and China fighting back and all these other countries deciding not to want to talk, it's been really causing a standoff until recently where companies and countries have decided to come to the table and want to talk about reducing tariffs.
Hours after President Trump's sweeping reciprocal tariffs went into effect, the president announced on social media a 90-day pause for trade partners except China. Stocks surged with the news even as the president hiked tariffs on Chinese imports, pushing them to 125% after Beijing raised its retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods to 84%.
And so America and China recently decided to start talking about some things, some deals and whatnot. And through that, it's been a really interesting ride, because mostly the big thing about China and America has been either there's been no talk at all and Trump is talking out of his ass, or Trump and China might actually come up with something that's more fair for America, you could say, because if you don't know, the trade deficit for America with the world is about $1 trillion a year, which means we lose about $1 trillion a year from imports and exports compared to other countries. While with China actually owns up about 30% with over $300 billion in a trade deficit a year, and they triple our trades from them to us. So it's pretty impressive to see that recently America and China were talking about working together, and with them, you know, having it being led to the public that, oh, maybe Trump is lying, Trump isn't doing any trade deals whatsoever. At least that's what China was saying. And Trump saying, well, we're coming to a reasonable, amicable thing and blah, blah, blah. You know, there's deals happening and we're seeing some positives. Overall, no one really knew what was happening until just this last Monday or Sunday when it was talked about that on Monday or Tuesday that Trump and China were going to come to some tariff agreements and that things were wrapping up somewhat. Once again, it took about a month ago where Trump decided to tell everyone that there would be a 90-day grace period except for China on these tariffs and that people could negotiate and talk about them. And with China being very belligerent and wanting to have a 145% tariff on America, it's not surprising that, there was a little bit of a standoff there. However, it seems that now with everything that's been happening, especially on what happened with Monday and Tuesday, that the stock market literally rose like 2 or 3% in one day and has been rising ever since. And now we're at $19,000.
I'm happy to report that we made substantial progress between the United States and China in the very important trade talks.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said on Sunday U.S. officials reached a deal with China to cut the trade deficit. He offered optimism and promised more details to come after 2 days of negotiations concluded in Geneva.
We will be giving details tomorrow, but I can tell you that the talks were productive.
Neither Bessent nor U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer took questions from reporters. The meeting was the first face-to-face interaction between senior U.S. and Chinese economic officials since U.S. President Donald Trump took office.
We're talking about a tariff of 10% on China based on the fact that they're sending fentanyl to Mexico and Canada.
Trump launched a global tariff blitz that started with declaring a national emergency over the U.S. fentanyl crisis and imposing a new 20% tariff on Chinese goods in February. The president then followed with a 34% reciprocal duty on Chinese imports in April, and subsequent rounds pushed the rates into triple digits, bringing nearly $600 billion in two-way trade to a standstill. China had insisted that tariffs be lowered in any talks.
China says in order to have substantive negotiations, you have to bring down your 145% tariffs. Are you open to pulling back your tariffs in order to get China to the negotiating table?
No.
Trump said on Friday that an 80% tariff on Chinese goods, quote, seems right, suggesting for the first time a specific reduction target. Ambassador Greer said the talks had moved the two sides forward.
Just remember why we're here in the first place, since the United States has a massive $1.2 trillion trade deficit. So the president declared a national emergency and imposed tariffs. So we're confident that the deal we struck with our Chinese partners will help us to work toward resolving that national emergency.
So right now, the trade tariffs with China and America actually did come to some agreements, some terms. And the big thing right now is America's tariffs from China are going to lower from 145%, which is such a crazy number to say, if I'm going to be honest, to just under 30%, while China is dropping from 125%, which also is a huge number, to 10%. And there's not really a reason for the tariffs to just go back to 145 or 125%. Honestly, having tariffs that big is actually kind of detrimental, if I'm going to be honest. So with something like that, Trump is saying we're not here to hurt China, and with everything that's been going on, China has been hurt very badly. At least that's what he's been saying. And I mean, with the manufacturing holdups that's been happening, and with people talking about luxury goods being faked in China instead of being made in Italy like we all thought, and with China having a surplus trading with America, and actually Canada having a huge surplus with America, I won't be honest, I think we'll do a Canada, Trump, America, will they actually become the 51st state, pros and cons video in the future. But for now, it's been really interesting on the fact that, there's some trade differences that's been happening recently with the, with how things are getting shipped into America and the tariffs that people have to pay. But overall, that's where we're at right now. Stock market is looking pretty good. It's been looking better. And hey, what do you guys think about the whole situation? Do you think that Trump and this new tariff trade deal economy thing is going to work out better in the future? I know a lot of people recently don't really see a vision or a future, but honestly for me, I think that if you live in America, you probably want more benefits, trading and whatnot, and it just makes more sense to be able to, it just makes more sense that if you are trading in America, if you live there, that you would want some better benefits for you, right? You know, you pay into Social Security, you want Social Security to pay you out. You don't want to be told that, oh, you pay for Social Security and then people that don't pay into Social Security get some. You know what I mean? It makes sense. But hey, I'd love to hear your opinion once again. Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? Do you think we're all screwed? I think it's very interesting to talk about this topic because of it happening currently on a national level. And trade tariffs and deals aren't something that happen on a yearly basis. This has really been something that's exploded recently in American media and actually in the whole world, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. My name is Roman, aka YoungBizWhiz. Thank you so much for watching this video, and have an awesome day. Take care. Peace.